On Friday night, just 3 days ago, I pulled into Toby's Bar and Grill at around 7:30 p.m. I was dead tired after spending the previous 2 days in the Big Apple, finalizing the negotiations with a large international bank. When the day had started, I was pessimistic that we would ever reach a deal, but it seemed that the outstanding obstacles started falling like dominoes shortly after our Friday meeting started. By noon, there were only 2 sticking points left. We decided to take a break and go out to lunch alone. I found a nearby Jewish deli and ordered a sinfully large pastrami and Swiss on rye, and enjoyed every bite. When we reconvened at 1:30, George Willis, the lead negotiator from the bank, said, "We've made a ton of progress. I propose we split the difference on the last 2 points." George passed a paper across the conference table, and I read what he was proposing. It most definitely wasn't splitting the difference, but was easily within the bounds of what my partners and I would accept to win this large contract. I scratched my initials on the page, and George said that he'd email a formal contract to me on Monday. After shaking hands, we all went in different directions. I went back to my hotel, packed, and checked out. I considered staying in the city for the night because my fiancée Trish was away for the weekend with her 2 older sisters. They were staying at one of Connecticut's giant Indian casinos. They planned to spend their days at the pool and spa and their evenings in the finer bars and restaurants. Instead of another night away from home, I headed to Grand Central Station and caught the Metro North train to New Haven. By 7:30, I had driven up I-91 toward Hartford and exited the highway. I was heading through the always popular downtown West Hartford. I decided to stop for dinner. I was sitting in Toby's bar area when I spotted my 2 future sisters-in-law through the bar mirror, sliding into a horseshoe-shaped table. Their husbands slid in next to them. The immediate knot in my stomach and pain that seemed to spread over every inch of my body told me that my wedding plans, exactly 8 weeks away, were in trouble. My sister-in-law should have been at the casino with Trish. After catching the bartender's eye, I said to Michael, "I need to go outside for a while. I promise I'll be back." "No problem, Chris. Do you mind if I put your drink on the shelf and open up this spot?" Michael asked as he reached for my glass. I nodded in agreement and left Toby's. I sat in my car in the back of the parking lot, and I sketched out in my head what I needed to do. I called Trish and she answered, "Hey, love. How is the big city?" "It's the same as always. We finished up a successful negotiation and I'm heading out for dinner. I wish you were with me." "You're so sweet, Chris. I miss you too. We've had a ball all day. We lounged at the pool and sipped drinks. I have a nice head start on my wedding tan. I'm meeting my sisters in a few minutes for dinner." Trish and I talked for a bit more before exchanging "I love you" and ending the call. I checked the Find My Phone app and punched in Trish's information. I'm not sure where Trish was, but her phone was in Falmouth, Massachusetts on the western end of Cape Cod. Hell, I thought. Trish's longtime neighbor and friend, Nick Flaherty, had a family home in Falmouth. We'd been invited there a number of times. Looking through my contact information, I found Sue Flaherty's cell phone number. I called, and after Sue answered, I said, "Hi, Sue. It's Chris Harrington." "Chris? Chris Harrington, what a nice surprise. How are the wedding plans coming along? Nick and I can't wait to be there." I responded, "To be honest, I'm not sure how the plans are coming." Sue laughed and said, "That's a typical male response." "Hey, Sue," I asked, "what are the chances that Nick is traveling this weekend?" What an odd question. Nick hardly ever has to travel over a weekend, but he is away this weekend. "What's this about?" Sue asked with a little concern in her voice. Before I answer, let me ask you, do you have a Find Your Phone app on your phone? Sue let out an involuntary sob, and in a near whisper she said, "Not again." A minute later she continued, "He's supposed to be in Philadelphia, but the tracker shows that he's at his family's cottage." With a sad sigh, I said, "I'm sorry, Sue. Nick and Trish are together." Sue quietly cried for a number of minutes. "This isn't the first time," she admitted. "I'm going to call the SOB and tell him not to come home." "Can I ask you a favor, Sue?" When she didn't answer, I continued. "Trish isn't due home until Sunday afternoon." "It's the same with Nick," she replied. I asked, "Let's put off our confrontation until tomorrow night. In the meantime, I'm going to change the locks on my condominium door and take half the wedding money from a shared joint account. I'll be able to pack all her clothes and other personal items and put the bags in the driveway." "You're right, Chris. I'll do the same thing. Please text or call if you need someone to talk to. I'm sorry I had to call you." Sue was crying again and between sobs said, "It's not your fault, Chris." My last call was to Billy Jones, a friend and neighbor. He answered, "What's up, Topher?" "I need some help, Billy. Are you around tomorrow morning?" I asked. "My only plans are to sleep until noon, but Sally will have me up at 7. What can I do for you?" "Is there a chance that you can change the lock on my front door and the door coming in from the garage? And if you could change the code on the garage door opener, I'd appreciate it." There was a moment of silence before Billy said, "Hell, is the wedding off?" "Unless I'm missing something big, Trish and I are dead and buried," I replied. "You got it, Topher. I'll head to Lowe's first thing in the morning and have everything changed by late morning. Does that work?" "You bet it does, Billy. Thanks." Feeling 20 years older, I trudged back into Toby's and walked to the bar. I was looking through the mirror at a reflection of my sisters-in-law and their husbands as Michael handed me back my bourbon. Their appetizers were being cleared by the server. I grabbed a bar stool and with my drink, I headed to my ex-future family's table. Michael called out, "Hey, Chris! You can't take the stool from the—" My furious stare cut Michael short. When I plopped the stool at the end of the table, climbed into the seat, and angrily looked back and forth between Julie and Karen, the atmosphere got chilly very quickly. "Chris! Buddy! Slide into the booth. We'll get you a menu," said Karen's husband, Steve. Without taking my eyes off the woman, I responded, "No thanks, Steve. I won't be staying long." I continued to silently glare at Julie and Karen until Julie's husband, Roy, asked, "What's going on, Chris's?" "Ask your wife, Roy," I answered. Roy and Steve turned toward their wives. It was easy to see that both women were scared to death. "What's going on?" Steve asked the sisters. Karen was the first to speak when she said, "It's not what you think, Chris." The thick tension grew as I looked across the table toward Karen. "I'm guessing it's exactly what I think," I told the group. Steve and Roy were looking back and forth between their wives at one end of the table and me at the other. When tears started streaming down Karen's face, Steve demanded, "What's going on, Chris?" "Your wives are covering for Trish. They were all together in my kitchen last Tuesday. Since I was going to be out of town until Sunday, they were going to Foxwoods Casino for a getaway weekend." "Where is Trish?" Roy asked the sisters. When they remained silent, he turned and looked at me. "She's at Nick's Cape Cod house." "Is that true?" Steve hissed. Both women were crying at this point. Karen nodded her agreement. Julie blubbered, "Trish loves you, Chris." "She really does." Steve rolled his eyes and Roy glared at the tabletop. "She has a great way of showing her love. She and her sisters lie to me and she goes off with an old neighborhood crush for a love fest weekend, just 8 weeks before she marries me. Your sister is a piece of crap." "Don't you dare!" Roy interrupted his wife and said, "Shut the hell up, Julie." Turning to me, he asked, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to cancel the wedding." Both friends leaned back in the booth. Their wives cried even harder. "Dad has spent so much money on the wedding and reception," said Karen. "I don't care. I'm not going to marry a lying, cheating woman like Trish." I waited a few moments before I told the group, "I've told Sue Flaherty that Nick is cheating with Trish. We both would like 24 hours before we crush them." 4 sets of eyes were looking at me when I asked Roy and Steve, "I need your help. Can you make sure—" My head jerked toward their wives. "Can you make sure they don't contact Trish until 6:15 p.m. tomorrow night?" Both women started to protest, before Steve said, "We sure can, buddy." And then turning to his wife, he said, "I'm disgusted with you. I have to wonder if your sisters have ever covered for you while you cheated on me." Karen was stunned as Steve continued, "If you or Julie contact Trish in any way, I'll consider filing for divorce." Roy's face was bright red in anger. His response brought a sad groan from Julie when he said, "After the troubles we had at the start of our 3rd year together, I might file for divorce either way. But understand, I'll definitely file if you contact Trish." I shook both men's hands and left the restaurant. Saturday was busy. It took me several hours to remove the last evidence of Trish from our home. Instead of piling the filled garbage bags in the driveway, I rented a small storage unit, and my neighbor Billy loaned me his pickup. It only took 3 trips to get all of the bags off my property. The most difficult part of the day was writing an email to our wedding guests. I worked on the email in bits and pieces throughout the day. It read, Subject, Harrington and Clark Wedding Update. Dear friends, I am currently halfway through a spectacular weekend, just 8 short weeks before my wedding day to Trish Clark. The weekend was spectacular because I discovered that Trish had spent her weekend in another man's bed. Trish and her longtime neighbor Nick Flaherty lied to me and Nick's wife Sue. With the help of Trish's sisters, Karen and Julie, and their lies, the couple is spending this weekend together on Cape Cod. You might wonder why I think this awful behavior is spectacular. The reason is simple. I'm not married to Trish. It's much easier to cancel a wedding than to go through the agony of a divorce. This email is my official notice that I am canceling my wedding to Trish Clark. Sincerely, Christopher Harrington. I called Sue Flaherty at 5:30 on Saturday afternoon. Together we filled in each other on the tasks that we were able to complete. Because Sue was married, her separation from Nick would be much more difficult. She was able to talk with an attorney on Saturday morning and had an appointment scheduled for Monday morning. The attorney had recommended canceling joint credit cards and, as much as possible, separating the family finances. It was typical legal advice in the case of divorce. We finished our call a few minutes before 6 p.m., and we agreed to send our spouses a text at exactly 6. My text simply said, I hope you are enjoying your weekend with Nick. Thank you for showing me and the world that you are a liar, a cheat, and an unfaithful woman. Our wedding is canceled. I sent the text at exactly 6 p.m. A moment later, I sent the email to our family and guests. 16 months later. I stood at the edge of the altar. My best man and groomsmen were flanking me to the left. The maid of honor and bridesmaids had each processed down the center aisle of the church, each looking as stunning as the last. Tears came to my eyes as I looked toward the back of the church. Trish's father stood proud, dressed in his black tuxedo. His eyes, like mine and the rest of our guests, were locked onto the most beautiful bride ever. Her blonde hair was styled and looked beautiful under the small white veil. Her blue eyes sparkled and were filled with love, and her deep red lips gave me wicked thoughts of our upcoming wedding night. The form-fitting white wedding dress highlighted her heavenly figure without making her look bad. It was perfect. As Mr. Clark and my bride started down the aisle toward me, I felt a pair of eyes drilling a hole through me. I scanned the guests on my side of the church before glancing at the bride's side. That's when I saw Trish. She had tears cascading down her cheek. I saw her silently say, "I'm sorry," before she turned toward her father and youngest sister walking toward me. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. My name is Solomon Trend. I am a claims adjuster for Universal Beneficial Amalgamated Insurance. I am sure that you have never heard of us. We are a clearinghouse for hundreds of very small independent insurance companies. I have worked for the same company for 22 years and have never considered changing jobs. The job is boring and is a perfect fit for my personality. Don't get me wrong, I am not unhappy or despondent. I am just not very motivated. My personal life is much like my career. I have been married for 23 years and have twin daughters, Rose and Iris, who are seniors at Albright College. I also have a 4-bedroom home with a humongous mortgage that paid for that college. My wife, Marcy, has never worked or had a desire to. Our income has been adequate, but that is about it. Even though I have been able to save about $40,000 over the years, my marriage is and always has been lukewarm. I was expecting and hoping for more. I tried all the usual tricks to liven things up, but nothing seemed to work. Today I found out why. It was a normal day at UBAI, boring as hell. It was just after lunch when I got the call. It was my wife's phone. She very seldom calls me at work, so I was interested. Hello? Solomon, old buddy. How are you? I haven't heard from you in years. Yeah, who is this and why are you using my wife's phone? I asked. It's Brad, Solomon, Brad Mercer. You remember me, don't you? I am the guy that you stole Marcy from. What was it, about 25 years ago? Sure, I remembered. I didn't steal her. He left town and I picked her up after he was gone. I would never steal another guy's girl. As far as I was concerned, she was fair game. Yeah, I remember. I would still like to know what you are doing with her phone, I questioned. Well, Solomon, it is like this. I was in town on business and gave her a call. We got together for lunch and one thing led to another and we ended up in my hotel room. Right now she is taking a shower, so I decided to chat you up. What the hell are you talking about? I questioned. She said that she wanted to clean up before heading home so that you wouldn't be upset. You want to hear something funny, Solomon? Listen to this. There was a slight pause, and then I could hear the sound of a motor of some type running. I couldn't make out what it was. Did you hear that, Solomon? That was a hairdryer. Would you believe that? I asked her to meet me for lunch, and she brings a mini hairdryer along with her. What does that tell you, Solomon? What do you want, Brad? Why the call? I asked. I just want to thank you for stealing my girl. How does it feel to know that I am still the better man? You may be married to her, but her heart is still mine. Why else would she be here? I disconnected the call and blocked the number. I didn't need to know anymore. That call answered a lot of questions that I had over the last couple of years. It took less than an hour to terminate my employment and have my salary and vacation pay forwarded to my brother in Huntsville. I stopped by the bank and cleaned out all the accounts. I didn't pay off the credit cards or the mortgage. I had the first-class mail forwarded to my brother also. I had just finished loading all of my stuff in the car when Marcy arrived. Solomon, what is going on? Why is your car filled up with stuff? I was sitting at the kitchen table finishing a cup of coffee as she set a few grocery bags on the counter. Oh, you noticed. There was a moment of silence as she started to empty the bags. She stopped halfway and turned. Are you going to tell me what is going on? She waited, arms akimbo. I placed my cup on the table and walked to the counter. Reaching into her purse, I pulled out a bright red metallic mini hairdryer. I simply held it up and waited for a reaction or an explanation. She stood frozen for a moment and then deeply sighed and quietly left the room. 5 minutes later, I was on the road heading for Huntsville. My brother Bob and his wife Barbara were happy to see me. It had been several years since we had gotten together. Bob and I chatted for a bit while Barbara put supper together. I was able to explain the whole situation without having any great emotional lapses. He seemed impressed that I was taking it so calmly. I was pretty beat after the long drive, so I turned in right after supper. Bob was up and gone when I got out of bed. He worked at the Toyota plant just north of Huntsville. Barbara volunteered to chauffeur me around and help me get settled in. It didn't involve much. I got a new driver's license and made arrangements to have mail delivery at Bob's house. Barbara followed me over to CarMax, and 20 minutes later I had a check for the Honda CR-V. As soon as Bob got off work, we were headed for the Rocket City RV Center. Barbara and I had lunch at Olive Garden. I wasn't too fussy, and after several hours, I finally settled on a small Rialta. They had it ready for me the next day. The sales rep spent a few hours going over everything that I needed to know about the operation and maintenance of my new home. I took it as is, except I had 4 new tires installed. Barbara was all excited about helping me set up all of my housekeeping necessities, and Bob had put together a small toolkit, gleaned from his overflowing garage. The next morning, I was gone. There was no plan. There was no destination. Whatever happened, happened. Wherever I ended up was the place that I was destined to be. That doesn't mean that I didn't prepare for eventualities. I was easygoing, but I was not careless or stupid. I avoided congestion. I avoided large cities during rush hours. I avoid bad weather. I didn't look for trouble, and I did try and stay away from it. The first 2 weeks I spent just driving. I was an avid follower of the 15 free parking locations for nomads, and figured that by the end of the year I would have tried all of them. The problem was that at the rate I was going, I would soon use up most of my readies on gas. Although I wasn't planning on anything, I decided to look for some type of opportunity. It was the middle of July and I was in South Dakota. I didn't plan it, it just happened. I have always heard about Sturgis, but since I had no interest whatsoever in motorcycles, I never thought about going there. The third place that I stopped at offered me free parking, free meals, and some under-the-table cash if I stayed the full month. I had no bartending experience, so I spent the next 5 weeks working in the kitchen. Running the clipper was no problem, and I even got a chance to do a little kitchen work. It was a bit hectic but exhilarating. I paid attention and learned something in that short time. The rally only lasted for 10 days. However, things were active before it started and after it was over. I was busy every day, all day. It was exhilarating, to say the least. By the end of the month, I felt qualified to do most of the fast food cooking, but I was not a chef. I stayed on for a week after it was over and then moved on west. 2 weeks later, I had a job cooking at a camping resort near Cody, Wyoming. Free parking, free food, and under-the-table money. How could I complain? After 3 months, the weather was starting to get a bit nippy, so I left, with a promise to come back the next spring. They were happy, and I had gotten a lot more experience and some more traveling money. The last sign that I saw said something about the Shoshone National Forest, but I had no idea where the hell I was. It was a nice day, so I pulled over onto what appeared to be a designated parking spot of some sort. It was a nice area, away from the traffic noise. Since I was in no hurry, I decided to stay a few days, or until somebody chased me off. That was when I met Micah. He wandered up to the camper while I was enjoying the sunset. He was a bit rough-looking for an old man, but he didn't look like a bum or a derelict. "The coffee smells good. Do you have an extra cup to spare?" I poured him a cup and pulled a folding chair out from under the Rialta. "My name is Solomon, like the king. What's yours?" "My name is Micah, not like any king that I know." He smiled at his own wit. We sat and chatted about the weather, the view, and other insignificant stuff for a few minutes. "Where is your car, Micah?" "Don't have one. I was walking," he answered. "From where?" "From home." His short answers were getting a bit annoying and frustrating. "Is it close?" I questioned. "No, not really. I have been walking for 2 days now." "Are you hungry?" I questioned. "Yeah, I could eat. Do you have anything handy? I don't want to put you out." One thing led to another, and I ended up feeding Micah, and then he spent the night in the RV. The next morning, we had a leisurely breakfast and chatted some more. "Micah, does anyone know that you are here?" I asked. "Oh yeah, my granddaughter Ottilie. She knows where I am. Isn't she worried? I asked. Why would she be? I always come home. I was at a loss for words. You know, Solomon, maybe I should go home. I need a change of underwear and some new socks. Hey, a bath and a shave wouldn't be bad either, old man, I replied. 30 minutes later, Micah and I were on our way. The only city sign that I saw said Lander, but I still didn't know where I was. I should have gotten a GPS for the RV before I left. Maybe I'll get myself one for Christmas. After an endless series of driving directions, we finally ended up in front of a cabin-type home that appeared to be half stone and half logs. It was very picturesque, so to speak. She was standing on the front porch waiting for us. It was as if she knew we were coming, and I found out that she did. Thank you for bringing Saba home. I was afraid that I was going to have to go get him. She was tall, with bronze skin and black hair. I couldn't tell much else because she was dressed in loose jeans and flannel. The term Zaba was interesting. You knew where he was? I asked. Of course. I always know where he is. I have a tracker sewn into his jacket. The battery will last for a week, but I usually get him back after 3 days or so. Does he have dementia? Is that why he wanders? I asked. No, he is fine. We had him checked several times. He just likes to walk around in the woods. He has been doing it for 2 years now, and we haven't had a problem. I do have to go get him occasionally, however. If I tried to restrict him in any way, then we would have a problem. I held out my hand. I am Solomon, by the way. I guess that I saved you a trip. Attili, Micah is my grandfather. I appreciate you bringing him home, or did I say that already? Anyway, come on in. I got hot coffee and cold beer. Your choice. Micah had disappeared somewhere. I assumed he was taking a shower and changing clothes. We talked a while, and then Micah reappeared, freshly showered and shaved. Attili made lunch. It was the first time that I had had a sit-down meal at a table in several months. It was nice. After lunch, Micah disappeared to someplace, and Attili gave me a tour of the property. They owned 640 acres, but most of it was wooded and mountainous. Not much good for ranching or farming. It was beautiful, however. Attili and I seemed to hit it off. Before I knew what happened, I was committed to supper and promised a hot shower and a regular bed for the night. A month later, I was still there. The winter was harsh, and Micah did not like the snow. He spent the winter wood carving. He liked to carve canes with unique designs and handles. Of course, all of the wood that he used came from the property. I spent hours walking with him, weather permitting, searching for just the right pieces that he wanted. What caught my eye as we were scavenging was the large numbers of cottonwood trees throughout the property. I happened to know that cottonwood bark carving had become very popular, but all Micah was interested in carving was his canes. Attili kept herself occupied writing romance novels. It appears that she had a knack for it. She had over 35 Bodice Ripper ebooks listed on Amazon and a few other sites. She had developed a good following, and the new novels sold as soon as she posted them. They were cheap, but she sold a lot of them. I earned my keep by doing all of the past due maintenance that the house and outbuildings sorely needed. It appeared to be an ongoing project with no end in sight. The previous owners of the property had kept horses, so there was a full-sized barn at the rear of the house. Micah and Attili were not into horses, so the barn was empty. I put the Rialta in the barn alongside a utility vehicle that had appeared to never have been used. It only took half a day to get the ATV serviced and in good operating condition. I had a plan, but wanted to talk to Attili first. Attili, we have to talk. She was working on her computer. Oh no! She leaned back in her chair, put the back of her hand on her forehead, and started to moan. Naturally, I stood there with a confused look on my face. Lighten up, Solomon, it's a joke. I don't get it. Let me explain it to you. In all the romance novels, when a couple has a problem of a sexual nature between them, they always have a conversation that starts with those 4 words. Usually one of them is going to tell the other one of a dastardly deed that he or she has done or is about to do. This great reveal always has the effect of creating a rift between them. One of them is critically hurt, and the other is usually indifferent or vengeful, or something like that. It can go many, many ways. "Oh, I just wanted to borrow the ATV," I answered. "Well, that's a big letdown. I was hoping for more." She was smiling. "Do you want a beer?" Micah was sitting in front of the fireplace, carving. Ottilie had a chair set up with a canvas tarp under it to catch the chips. In the summer, she made him sit on the porch to carve. "Now, what do you need the ATV for?" she asked. I spent the next hour explaining my plan to her. I had 3 distributors set up who were willing to buy all the cottonwood bark that I could provide at wholesale prices. There was more available wood on the property than we would ever need. We would be harvesting the bark only from dead trees, and there were enough on the acreage to keep us busy for many, many years. The only problem that we had was shipping. There was just no practical, cost-effective way to ship the bark. Ottilie gave me her blessings to do whatever I wanted to do. She even agreed to let Micah help me. Micah was excited to have something to occupy his time. The shipping problem was on hold. After the cold weather passed, Micah and I had some nice crisp days to start our little project. We decided to do the trees that were easily accessible first. The biggest problem was having to make so many trips back to the barn. The utility cart did not have that big a capacity. Micah was more than happy to be the designated driver. Luckily, the barn was big enough to store all that we could collect. As the barn got fuller, we cut back on our gathering. Micah and I were both sleeping well. Ottilie and I had never talked about ourselves or our situations. I didn't want to intrude on her privacy, and I think she felt the same way. It had been quite a while since I left home, and I felt that I should contact my daughters at the least. I no longer had a phone, so I had to borrow Ottilie's. "Rose, it's your father." They shared a dorm room, but I didn't know which one I would get. I recognized her voice. "Dad, is that you? My God, where the hell have you been? We have been worried to death. Mom is beside herself. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, honey. Honest, I'm fine. I just had to get away for a while. I was afraid that I might do something if I stayed around. Didn't your mother explain it to you?" "Mom said she came home one day and was putting the groceries away when you had a fit and stormed out of the house. She said she hasn't seen or heard from you since." "That's it?" "That is all that she said?" I asked. "Yep. She sat around for about 2 months and then went out and got a job stocking shelves at Target. The night shift pays more and she needed the money. She hasn't been making the house payments and can barely keep the utilities on. She said the bank has been harassing her." "Dad, what the hell is going on?" "Rose, I could try and take the high road and tell you that your mother should be the one to reveal what happened, but it is a little late for that now. I don't want to be the bad guy, but your mother cheated on me." "Nonsense, I don't believe that. How do you know and with who?" they asked. "She spent the afternoon having intimacy with an old boyfriend named Brad Mercer. While she was in his room taking a shower, he called me using her phone and bragged about it. When she got home, I sort of confronted her, and she just walked out of the room. That was when I left." "What do you mean by sort of confronted her?" they asked. "She took her hairdryer with her when she went to meet him. Why would a woman take a hairdryer along to meet an old friend? It was premeditated, and she knows that I know it." "Damn, Dad, Iris and I are going to see her this weekend. We are going to get this straightened out. Can I call you back at this number?" "No, it belongs to a friend. I'm going to block your number after we hang up. I'll call you in a month or so." "Okay, take care of yourself. Bye." I didn't know it, but Ottilie was standing nearby and heard the entire conversation, just one side, of course. That night after Micah turned in, Ottilie and I were in front of the fireplace, drinking wine and making popcorn. Yes, I had firewood duty also. "I am sorry about what happened between you and your wife." "You overheard?" I asked. "Yes, I couldn't help it. I think I understand, but I don't want to intrude on your privacy." "That's okay. She cheated and I left. Not much else to it." But now that that is out in the open, what is your story? Tell me what a beautiful, vibrant young Jewish girl is doing hiding in Wyoming. Wow, you missed 3 out of 4 there. I am not beautiful. I am not vibrant, and I am not hiding. I am Jewish, however, if that matters. You are avoiding my question, I answered. She sighed. My husband cheated on me and he got himself murdered. Got himself murdered? What the hell does that mean? I questioned. She leaned over and whispered in my ear. Micah killed the jerk. I am sure I heard her giggle a bit. Now I knew why they were in Wyoming. Micah was in hiding and she was just taking care of him. Nice setup. We never did figure out a good way to ship the barkwood. I guess it would be better to say that we lost interest in trying to find a good way to ship the barkwood. I never made any attempts to sell the wood, other than the initial contacts that I had made with a few distributors. I sort of just forgot about it. However, Micah and I had gotten into a routine of harvesting it. It was therapeutic for both of us. It was a nice day, so we decided that rather than harvest, we would spend the time clearing out a few access trails to get to some of the harder-to-reach trees. Both of us were totally spent at the end of the day and surprised to see the barn empty when we got back. Ottilie was smiling as we dragged ourselves up on the porch. She had some beer ready, although it was cool enough for coffee. What happened? I asked. She was still smiling. 2 guys from Smoky Mountain Timber got here right after you left this morning with a truck. I showed him what was in the barn and he wrote me a check for $4,800. They had it loaded and were gone before noon. I didn't know how much it was worth. I hope I did all right. Micah and I high-fived each other. It seemed odd doing it with a 70-year-old man from New Jersey. Ottilie took that to mean that everything was okay. I had no idea what it was worth, but as far as I was concerned, it was found money. It was a good day. Now we had to fill the barn again. It was time to check in with my daughters. Hi, Rose. It's your dad. Just thought I would check in to see how everything was going. Not well, I am afraid. Iris is here, so let me put the phone on speaker. How bad is not well? I asked. Mom is in jail? Okay. I am all ears, I answered. We talked to Mom after our last conversation. She knew absolutely nothing about the phone call that guy made. She admitted that she was there and that they had intimacy, but didn't know what he did or why he did it. 2 days later, she was arrested. Okay, but what was she arrested for? I asked. She shot him 5 times. Was he dead? I asked. No, she used your old .22 revolver with hollow point bullets. She shot him 5 times, just below the navel. It didn't kill him, but it sure did mess up his plumbing. It held 6 bullets, I answered. Yeah, that is the funny thing. After she shot him, she called 911, and while she was on the phone, she intentionally shot herself in the foot. That doesn't make sense, I replied. We didn't think so either. She told us later that she did it so that she would have something to remember it by. Should I come home? I asked. No, she will be out on bail in a couple of days. I don't think she is too anxious to see you right now. She regrets what she did, but she doesn't want to talk with Iris and me about it, let alone you. Okay, well, I'll let it be then. I'll call back a bit later, I answered. Oh, Dad. One more thing. We think she is going to file for divorce. She said that you probably would not do it, so she decided that she would. She refused to discuss it any further. The bank repossessed the house. Life goes on. Things pretty much settled down. Ottilie got back to writing, and Micah and I got back to harvesting barkwood. The weather was nice, so we took advantage of it. And then I got the talk from Micah. I wasn't expecting it. He hit me while we were having a lunch break. Solomon, my good friend, you are not carrying your share of the load. What are you talking about, old man? I do twice the work you do, I replied. I am not talking about that. I mean at the lodge. I don't understand. There is not much to do there. Ottilie takes care of just about everything, and when I try to help, she pushes me away, I answered. That is not what I mean either, damn it. Solomon, Ottilie is a grown woman in the prime of her life. She needs the comfort of a man. She needs strong arms and a warm body. You are the best and actually the only candidate for the job. It's time for you to step up and be a man. Damn it, Micah. You aren't insinuating what I think you are? You want me to sleep with your granddaughter? Hell, how do you know if she is even attracted to me? She has never said anything. Of course not, you idiot. She is waiting for you to make the first move, Micah answered. What if she turns me down? What will I do then? I'll have to leave and I don't want to. I like it here, and I don't want to mess anything up, I replied. Solomon, believe me, she will not turn you down, Nuff said. Let's get back to work. Micah was right, of course. There was no great reveal or enlightening conversation. That night, Ottilie and I just excused ourselves and went to her room. I moved in the next morning. It was different, but it was still the same. She seemed satisfied and I was ecstatic. Micah was smiling for a week. The weather was starting to warm up. Working the bark was hit and miss over the winter. When it was tolerable, we worked. Otherwise, we relaxed. Micah was busy with his canes, and I tried my hand at bark carving. Teaching myself with the online videos was fun. I used up a lot of Band-Aids. Ottilie was still writing her novels. Everything came to a grinding halt the next week. Micah and I were earmarking some trees for the next month's harvest. As we topped the hill overlooking the lodge, we saw a state police car and 2 black sedans parked in front. We watched for a while as Ottilie talked with several of the visitors. She was being very expressive, waving her arms about and stomping her feet. I thought it was pretty serious, but Micah was sort of laughing. 2 of the men finally talked her into letting them go into the house. I assumed to look around. I was pretty sure that they were not looking for me because I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't that sure about Micah. Micah, do you remember the place where we first met? He looked at me, smiled, and nodded his head. Can you meet me there in 2 days? He repeated his nonverbal reply. Micah took the few snacks we had with us, and all the water, and quietly disappeared over the hill. I hoped that Ottilie had his GPS chip fully charged. I continued down to the lodge and played the dim-witted hired hand. They were indeed looking for Micah. Ottilie had no idea how they traced him to the lodge. In addition to the local police, there were 2 officials there from New Jersey and 2 federal agents. It appears that Ottilie's ex-husband was someone of importance. I have no idea what took them so long to locate Micah. They browbeat the hell out of Ottilie but were not interested in me at all. That was a relief. They left after several hours but did not appear to be happy. Ottilie, however, was ecstatic because I hadn't brought Micah back with me. She did not ask me where he was. I didn't offer. We relaxed that evening and most of the next day. I assume that you and Micah have something arranged? She phrased that as a question. I smiled and nodded. Something that I recently learned from an old man. Do you have his passport? Now she smiled, got up, and left the room. A few minutes later, she was back with an Israeli passport and an envelope with $10,000 in it. We checked several times during the day and evening to see if anybody was watching the lodge. There wasn't. Micah was right where he was supposed to be the next morning. He was hungry and a bit chilly, but in good spirits. 15 hours later, I dropped him off at the Regina International Airport. I offered to go in with him, but he insisted that it was better if he did it himself. I was sure that he would be on the no-fly list in the States. After a nice steak dinner, I got a room and a good night's sleep. I was back at the lodge the next evening. I called my daughters and found out that Marcy was now at Muncie serving 5 to 8. They didn't go into any details and I didn't ask them to. The good news was that I was no longer married. Some sort of prison advocate group had assisted Marcy in filing and processing the divorce in less than 90 days. Reluctantly, I gave Rose the address for the lodge. I really wanted that piece of paper and didn't see any downside. Since Micah refused to come back to Wyoming for the wedding, Ottilie and I were married in Haifa. Micah gave us the ranch as a wedding present. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.